When I began to walk alone, I did not call it a choice. I called it a necessity. There comes a moment in every life when the voices around you become so loud that you can no longer hear your own. Advice, opinions, expectations, praise, doubt, all of it blends into a constant hum that follows you everywhere. For a long time, I lived inside that sound, shaping myself to fit what others saw in me, or what I believed they wanted me to be. But one day, I realized I had become skilled at many things except knowing who I truly was. So I stepped away. Not in anger, not in rejection, but in quiet curiosity. I wanted to see what remained when no one was watching. I wanted to know how I moved when there was no one to impress, how I decided when there was no one to agree with me, how I stood when there was no one to lean on. The first days of that solitude felt strange, like standing in a room after the music has stopped. The silence was not empty. It was full of my own thoughts, and some of them I did not like. I heard my doubts clearly for the first time. They did not whisper, they spoke plainly. They asked me why I was doing what I was doing and for whom. They pointed to the habits I defended and the excuses I protected. In the presence of others, these things hid behind laughter and conversation. Alone, they stood in front of me without disguise. This is what solitude does. It removes the mask gently but firmly. It shows you the parts of yourself you have been avoiding, the impatience you call ambition, the fear you call caution, the pride you call confidence. I had to sit with these things and look at them without turning away. It was uncomfortable, but it was honest. At first, I tried to fill the quiet. I found ways to distract myself, to keep my mind busy, to avoid the stillness that felt too revealing. But I noticed something. Every time I reached for noise, it was because I did not like what the silence was showing me, so I stopped reaching. I let the stillness stay, and slowly I began to understand what it was teaching. I learned that many of my actions were not guided by my values but by my desire to belong. I chose certain paths because they were accepted. I avoided others because they might make me stand out. This realization was like stepping into cold water. It shocked me awake. I had believed I was walking my own road, but I saw that much of it had been shaped by the footsteps of others. In solitude, I began to draw my own map. I asked myself simple questions, but they were not easy to answer. What do I respect in others? What do I refuse to compromise even when it would make life easier? What kind of person do I want to be when no one is there to see it? These questions did not demand quick responses. They demanded days, sometimes weeks of quiet thought. The answers that came were not always flattering, but they were mine. There were moments when loneliness felt heavy, when the absence of familiar faces and shared moments pressed against my chest. I missed the comfort of being understood without having to explain myself. I missed the ease of blending into a group. But each time I felt that pull, I reminded myself why I had stepped away. I was not here to be comfortable, I was here to be clear. And clarity began to grow. I noticed that my reactions slowed. When something upset me, I did not respond immediately. I watched the feeling rise and fall inside me. I began to see that emotions, like weather, change on their own if you give them space. This understanding gave me a sense of control I had never known before, not control over the world but over myself. I also noticed how my attention sharpened. Without constant conversation and distraction, my mind learned to stay with one thought, one task, one moment at a time. I became more present in my movements, more deliberate in my choices. Even simple actions carried more weight, more intention. Solitude revealed my habits as well, the small things I did without thinking, the ways I avoided effort, the ways I drifted instead of decided. Seeing these patterns gave me a chance to change them, not all at once but slowly, deliberately, one choice at a time. There is a quiet power in knowing that you are shaping yourself when no one is looking. It creates a kind of confidence that does not depend on applause. You begin to trust your own standards instead of borrowing them from others. You begin to measure your days not by how they appear but by how they feel inside. I found that this trust changed how I moved through the world when I did return to others. I spoke less but I meant more. I listened more but I reacted less. I did not feel the need to explain myself at every turn. I knew who I was becoming, and that was enough. Solitude also taught me compassion. When you see your own struggles clearly, you recognize them in others. You become less quick to judge, less eager to label. You understand that everyone is carrying something, even if they hide it well. This understanding softens you without weakening you. It gives your strength a human shape. Over time, I realized that being alone does not mean being separate from the world. It means being rooted in yourself. When you are rooted, you can connect without losing your shape. You can be part of a group without dissolving into it. You can listen to advice without being ruled by it. There were days when I felt like turning back, like stepping into the noise again and letting it carry me. Those days reminded me why this path is not crowded. It asks you to be responsible for your own direction. It asks you to stand by your choices even when they are not popular. It asks you to keep walking even when no one is walking beside you. But with each step, I felt something solid forming inside me, a sense of steadiness, a sense of alignment. My actions and my values began to move in the same direction. That harmony created a quiet strength that I could feel in my breath, in my posture, in my decisions. Solitude did not make me perfect. It made me aware, and awareness is the beginning of every form of mastery. When you see yourself clearly, you can guide yourself honestly. You stop chasing images of who you think you should be and start becoming who you actually are. So if you find yourself alone on your path, do not rush to fill the space. Let it show you what is waiting there. Let it reveal the habits you need to leave behind and the strengths you need to build. Let it introduce you to the person who will walk with you for the rest of your life. Because when you finally learn to stand comfortably in your own presence, you become difficult to move, difficult to bend, and impossible to break. When you choose this path, you must understand that it will thin the crowd around you. The noise of the world will fade not because it disappears, but because you stop turning your head every time it calls your name. I learned early that most people walk together not because they share a direction, but because they fear walking alone. They fear the sound of their own footsteps. They fear the quiet that follows them when no one is there to fill the space with laughter, complaints, or approval. But it is in that quiet that you finally hear the truth of who you are. There were nights when the wind was my only companion and the ground my only bed. No voices to praise me, no eyes to measure me, no hands to pull me back when I moved forward. In those moments, I felt the weight of being alone press against my chest like a stone. And yet, beneath that weight, there was a strange lightness. Without the expectations of others, I could move freely. Without their opinions, my steps became my own. Loneliness, I discovered, is not emptiness, it is space. And space can be filled with strength. You will notice this when you begin to rise earlier than the rest, when you train while others rest, when you choose silence over explanation. People will ask why you are changing. Some will laugh, some will doubt, some will try to pull you back into the familiar circle where comfort lives. They will say, stay with us, walk our pace, sleep when we sleep, want what we want. They do not say this to guide you. They say it to soothe their own fear of being left behind. So you must decide what matters more, belonging to the many or becoming the few. This is not a choice you make once. It is a choice you make every day, every morning when you rise, every moment when you feel the pull of distraction, every time you sense the sting of standing apart. The lonely path is not carved by grand gestures. It is carved by small, stubborn decisions that no one else sees. There is a moment in training, in work, in life when your body grows tired and your mind begins to bargain. It will whisper, you have done enough, rest now. Others are resting too. That is the voice of comfort, and it is very convincing. But listen closely and you will hear another voice beneath it, quieter but steadier. It will say, take one more step. That voice is not loud because it does not need to persuade. It only needs to be obeyed. When you follow that quieter voice, you step further away from the crowd. And yes, the distance can feel cold. There will be days when you look around and see no one walking beside you. Your victories will go unnoticed. Your struggles will be unseen. But in that isolation, you begin to build something that cannot be taken from you. You build a relationship with yourself that is not based on praise or reward, but on trust. You learn that you can rely on your own discipline when motivation disappears. You learn that your own word to yourself is stronger than any promise made to others. Do not mistake this for bitterness. Walking alone does not mean you look down on those who walk together. It simply means you have chosen a different rhythm. The river that flows quietly and deep shapes the land more than the one that rushes loudly on the surface. Your calm, steady movement will change you in ways that noise and applause never could. There will be moments when loneliness tries to turn into doubt. You will ask yourself if the path is worth it, if the distance you feel from others is the price you truly want to pay. In those moments, remember why you began. Remember the version of yourself that felt weak, scattered, pulled in 1,000 directions by every voice in the room. Remember the hunger you felt for something solid, something unbreakable. This path is not meant to make you feel special. It is meant to make you strong. As you continue, something curious happens. The loneliness that once felt heavy begins to feel light. You start to enjoy the quiet of your own company. You find peace in the steady rhythm of your breath, the focused movement of your body, the clear line of your thoughts. You no longer need the crowd to confirm that you are moving forward. You can feel it in your bones. And then, without seeking it, you may notice others watching from a distance. Not everyone will follow, but some will be drawn to the calm in your steps, the certainty in your eyes. They will not come because you called them. They will come because they see what this path has built in you. Even then, you must remember that the strength you carry was forged in the moments when no one was there to see you. So when the night grows quiet and the world seems far away, do not rush to fill the silence. Sit with it, walk with it. Let it teach you who you are when there is nothing left to hide behind. This is where you become unbreakable, not by being surrounded but by standing firm on your own ground. And when the morning comes, rise and take your step forward, even if you walk it alone. There comes a moment when you realize that strength is not only built in the body, but sharpened in the way you see the world. You can train your hands to move faster and your legs to carry you farther, but if your eyes are clouded by fear or desire, your path will always bend away from your true direction. I learned to look at each day as a quiet battlefield, not against others, but against the restless part of myself that seeks excuses instead of purpose. When you wake, your mind will already be full of noise. Thoughts of what you want, what you lack, what you fear losing. Most people let those thoughts lead them like a horse following the reins of habit, but you must learn to step back and watch them pass like clouds. You do not have to chase every thought that appears. You do not have to obey every feeling that rises in your chest. In that space between thought and action, you find freedom. There were times when anger came to me like a sudden flame or doubt crept in like a shadow at my feet. In those moments, I did not fight them. I simply stood still and let them reveal themselves. A flame burns out when it finds nothing to consume. A shadow disappears when you turn toward the light. By observing instead of reacting, you begin to master the invisible battles that decide your visible victories. This way of seeing changes how you move through the world. Insults lose their power. Praise loses its grip. You walk forward with a steady heart, guided not by the rise and fall of emotion but by a clear sense of direction. The calmer your eyes become, the sharper your path grows. So today and every day, choose to see before you choose to act, and let your stillness become the edge that carries you forward.